Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. It's nearly lunchtime here. Anyway, thank you for coming. Hello to everyone who's saying hello in the chat room already. We can see you all. Thanks for coming along. And we are going to bravely talk about SQE technology shortly. For anyone who's joining us for the first time, this is the 10th session we've done on the book called The Primer of the Zeta Race. And we're looking at chapter 20, which talks about ET craft and Zeta technology. And this is part 2 of chapter 20 because last week we never got through all our questions that we've been given about that chapter. So before we start with that, though, obviously it's been a very interesting 72 hours or so in the world of ufology, and all those on the edge of their seats waiting for disclosure with the very recent press conference held by Dr. Stephen Greer. I'm going to hand it over to you for the rest. Where do you want to start?
Wow, where do you start? So you've got David coming out, or Grush coming out with...
that was about a week ago.
Yeah, saying things like that there's craft and alien bodies. You've got Greer coming forward saying that, and I think I had a look at the statistics in the 3-hour video that he put up, that there's like 120 or so crashed craft that the humans have. Lots of statements are made, lots of people coming forward. But right at the very end is the most telling part, I believe.
Yeah.
Where Greer talks about the fact that, from his perspective, that all aliens are good and that all abductions are generally done by humans.
It was a very polar black and white scenario he was trying to paint, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the thing is that, you know, from a perspective of why would somebody say that? Well, we need to think about, if all humans are doing the abductions, that means that supposedly all the extraterrestrials are better, I guess, in some respects than the way that humans behave. So there's a lot of problems with the statements that have been made, because if do I agree with Stephen Greer, asked Pam. I thought at some point you could click on these comments. Do they come up at all?
No, that's
something else, is
StreamYard.
it?
Yeah, we're not doing that through StreamYard today.
So do I agree with Stephen Greer? No, not at all. I agree with, you know, fundamentally some of the things that he's discussing. But we have to think about what happens if you tell the human race that it's only humans that are abducting humans. Then, of course, everybody gets up. Everybody's like, right, we're not taking this anymore. We need to disclose or discover what's going on with these people that are above the government, right? If you then get a lot of support to make that happen, then that's a great thing. I mean, like, obviously everyone wants disclosure. Then if you talk about, it's not just humans doing that, it's actually extraterrestrials as well. I'm not sure how much support you're going to get from humans in regards to wanting to disclose what the information that they've got. That's the real thing. And I mean, what does it actually mean, and where does that go? Like, if you think that it's extraterrestrials doing it, and that humans have, as Greer said, technology that's hundreds, if not 1,000 years more advanced than what's currently available on planet, it leaves a massive hole in the discussion. It's as though, in some respects, that people think that the more the disclosure that you have, the more people that come forward, the more information that comes out, that at some point it'll all just be out there on the table. Well, it's never going to be.
I guess the question is why, like you said, why has he chosen to take that standpoint? and maybe that's multifaceted as well. It's easier for people to believe in some ways that it's humans being bad and humans behaving badly, as we know humans can. But also, I wonder if he may be thinking about, harping back to Project Blue Beam. The fake alien invasion stuff, all the old talk of the holographic imagery in the sky and all of that. He did mention something towards the end that he was keen to not enable a fake alien invasion scenario to be, created. I wonder if that's partly his reasoning as well.
Look, it could be. I mean, if you're in a situation where you've got all these people backing you up and you're one of the lead proponents in regards to the information that's coming out, I think on some level you've got a responsibility to everybody around you and the information. But I think at this point people have had enough. People are going, guess what? Just tell us what's going on. We're all adults. We'll work it out and we'll sort through it. But the ramifications are, what if you can't deal with the information that you're given? So there's some serious issues with this. And okay, so supposedly the craft comparable with extraterrestrial craft, right? And that you can't actually tell the difference. So if I look outside the window and see a craft now, my level of sort of incredulity, whatever that word is going to be quite high. I'll be like, oh, that's probably just a human craft.
Yeah.
That's basically taken the wind out of the sails of this whole fake alien thing that's supposed to may take place supposedly. Because now everyone's just going to go, oh, you're on, okay, there's 20 craft up there, because people are going to go, well, they're probably just full of humans, right?
How do you tell the difference?
Well, but the care factor is zero in the end. If you look out there and you go, oh, it's a nice looking craft.
Yeah, haven't seen one of them before.
Yeah. But if they turned around and they said, no, listen, it's extraterrestrials that are doing all these abductions, and you looked outside and you go, no humans have this technology, what level of panic would it cause? What problems will it cause? And I think that if it was you that was being asked to give out this information, you'd want to make sure that you had all the information. Now, if you think about the way people on that panel, and he did disclose with the panel, I think it was 400 people or something in 2003.
Oh, it's a lot.
Oh, it was a lot of people, yeah. And it was a good thing. But you've got to ask yourself, when people are working with these extraterrestrials, is what they're seeing really happening, or are they given screen memories and a narrative as well? When these people are working with extraterrestrials and fully conscious and cognizant of what they're doing, they're interacting with these extraterrestrials. Are these extraterrestrials that they're working with giving them the truth and the facts? Because we've known times when people have had interaction with extraterrestrials and humans are only told what they can handle at a certain point. They're not actually told the full truth. So you've got a situation where there's humans not giving the full facts. You've got extraterrestrials not giving the full facts. And from their position, and I'm not speaking for a race or any races, I'm just saying from their position, disclosure would be over today if they turned up and landed.
They'd have to get out.
They'd have to get out and come for the walk around, all the rest of it. The thing is, so you've got these two sides to the issue. One is where you've got the humans saying that, oh, it's only humans that do abductions. That does a complete disservice to the millions of people that have actually been abducted.
Yep.
Not contacted, abducted. So let's say over the 80 years, a billion people, which is, and at say 10% of the population, right, has actually had contact with extraterrestrials. By saying that those people were actually taken by humans, think about the logistics of that. How many craft would you need? How many people would you need? For it to even be under the wire in
Yeah.
regards to the amount of people that are taken. Even have a look at how many people say they get in contact now. Now, I can imagine that if you look out in the sky at night and you see a flashing light, it can be anything. It can be human craft, extraterrestrial craft, it can be a satellite, it can be anything. But when somebody makes a statement and says that all the people that have been taken by humans, that must be a pretty big department. Forget the men in black. This has got to be like the biggest department on the planet, because basically they know no borders, as Greer says, and people are taken right across the planet all the time. And I think that people need to start to try to think a bit further than whether it's a political thing or it's this person's belief or whatever, and really start to have a look at the big picture here of what this actually involves. Because as I said, if the extraterrestrials disclose, it just is going to be like that, because ultimately they'll walk out of their craft. There'll be no, people could go, oh, they're just, sort of biological entities that have been created by humans. But in the end, the extraterrestrials would be prepared for that type of scenario and would give valid information and evidence that to support who they are. But from a human perspective, we've got to understand, they're trying to garner support to disclose the truth about what's really going on. I think that they're not telling the truth at this point because they've got an agenda in regards to why they won't give that information. And I don't think that a lot of the people on this planet actually believe a lot of the things that were said anyway. I've read comments and had people people speaking that have said, we just don't think that that's happening
at
all. So definitely, I mean, that's my own personal opinion. I'm just hypothesizing, like most people.
Yeah.
But in the end, that must be a massive department.
Yeah.
I
think we'll just reiterate, when we talk about disclosure, we very much separate human disclosure versus disclosure from extraterrestrials. And as you've alluded to there, it's one thing for whoever to come out and give their ideas about what's going on. It's another thing when the extraterrestrial races actually disclose for themselves.
So there are some questions there. Is Greer being paid to do this? By who?
Who knows?
Whatever. I don't know.
Would we ever
know? John says, I think certain ones like Greer have a large audience and connections with officials. They would prefer that humans believe they're still in complete control. You know what? When Grush came out and said what he did about the craft and the bodies, then the US government put out a statement, I believe, saying, or the Pentagon saying, we don't know anything about it. Well, and then they're saying, well, yeah, but you're not read into this, so how can you basically know what's going on anyway? Maybe that's it. The truth somewhere is in the middle there, of course. Everybody's all excited about extraterrestrial contact, but to me, it's a lot like, just watch this space, because I don't think anything's going to happen in this space. It doesn't matter how much people disclose about what they've got. It's not going to force disclosure by extraterrestrials. They will not disclose for very, very valid reasons.
Yeah.
Chris says, do each of the Zetas have a specific job or task? Yes, they do. Of course, the races have their roles to play, whether they have a function to perform, and each of the extraterrestrial beings from the Zetas also have a job to perform as well.
They sure do.
So there's a lot to that. John says, I feel that Zetas must necessarily be several orders of magnitude more intelligent than we are collectively. We are part of a massive collective consciousness, but we're not even that far yet. Well, the thing is, John, is the Zetas have said that the human collective consciousness is established, but it's growing.
It's in its infancy.
And it's in its infancy. Now, we don't need to worry or compare ourselves with other races. We just need to make sure that we look after each other in the end, because if we look after each other and the races see that we're looking after each other rather than hurting each other, they'll then step in and support us much more quickly. if all they ever see is us harming each other and having wars on the planet, their ability to step in is limited, absolutely limited.
There's another question there. My eyes are not working at all this morning.
Catherine says, I was surprised to not see more comments on the Christchurch earthquake. Stephen Greer suggested that there is technology up in one of the poles. I think it was South Pole, wasn't it?
South Pole, and it was that's what he said.
That's what he said.
It was directly
and I thought that was a stunning statement.
It was a very bold statement.
Very bold statement. Yeah. Another statement that was made was about scalar technologies and how they're used to bring down craft. I actually then started to research this scalar technology, and I've heard about it before. The Zetas have spoke about different types of RF and EMF and scalar technology, and I don't know enough about it to comment on it, so I won't comment on it. But I think that a lot of the statements that have been made, people will look into. But think about this: somebody's got up. A few people actually have got up. We've got Gary Nolan at the SALT conference. We've got Dave Grush come out. We've got Stephen Greer, and those very brave military people as well that came forward. This will definitely produce some level of disclosure for humanity. But okay, so let's say today that someone says to you, and I say this all the time, yep, aliens exist, no problem. And you go, okay, well, aliens exist. The problem is that there's a psychological dysphoria that takes place when people say that. They go, oh yeah, I know they exist. But actually, do you really? Because unless you actually come face to face with one, you've only got a knowledge of it. You don't have an experience. And it's the experience of being confronted by an extraterrestrial that's actually the most confronting thing that you'll probably ever do.
And we're not talking about the screen memories here. We're talking about the beings that produce the screen memories.
Yeah. And this is why when people say, oh, my ETs or my buddies or my race or whatever, I often think to myself, I wonder what sort of relationship that person really has. Is it just a speck of light? Is it some sort of distortion? Because if they were really fully faced with the extraterrestrial race or being, I think that they would realize that they're living in an environment that's not conducive to contact at all. There's certainly very, very high levels of dysphoria in regards to that. It then puts you in a situation, so let's say you've had contact, full face-to-face contact with extraterrestrials. Where does that leave you as a person, going about your daily life and living the role of a human? What do you do with that information? Who's really going to believe you anyway? There's a lot to this. And this is why, until they disclose for themselves and then come down and go, okay, and now the role is, we've got this person that we work with and that person, but we don't work with the other 50 million people that say that they've got contact. That's going to be a very humorous situation, especially for all the ambassadors out there that are ambassadors for all of the different federations.
Good luck
with all of that. It's going to be really interesting. John says, as much as it would initially terrify me, I know that I will eventually need to see my star race face to face. I want very much to meet them and eventually to rejoin them. Well, because of people's point of origin, if you're a hybrid, you know your race anyway. It's only your construct, your human construct, that doesn't know the race. All right? A race will interact with their node or their hybrid the way that they choose to interact with them. And in doing so, the human mind will not understand that contact. Yeah. I know that people have got aliens with felt hats and feathers and capes and gold rings and all the rest of it, and laser blasters or whatever it is that people have got these days. This is what the extraterrestrials allow as a construct for a person to believe that they're in some sort of relationship with these beings. Truthfully, if these beings acted that way, they'd just land. They'd be out there. They'd be putting their ghetto blasters on, staying alive, pumping, and they'd be out there dancing.
I've got images from the film Paul.
Paul, just that's right, Paul. The movie Paul, that's right. So in the end, let's try and like look through all of this silliness that's currently going on and go, you know what, we just don't buy it.
Yeah.
And until the extraterrestrials disclose for themselves, it's really the only type of disclosure that really is needed and required.
Yeah.
All right. I love the movie Paul as well.
It's one of our favourite films.
I've probably watched it 6 times and I laugh every time I watch it. So look, unless there's more questions about disclosure, was that in me in the movie? No, not at all.
I hope not.
No, thank you.
Don't want you eating live
No,
birds.
no. No, thank you. I'm a vegetarian. Okay, we don't talk that way. All right. So, do you want to? If there's no more questions, we'll go on with the.
We'll get back to the primer.
We'll get back to the primer. Yeah. But if you do think of a question,
just type
in the middle of it, that's fine as well. We'll go for it. So, do you want to go for
it? Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So we got halfway through chapter 20 last week, and now we're moving on to SQE technology, or synthetic quantum environments. But I think before we get to these questions, I think you, because I'm not going to, I think you just need to give an overview of what SQEs, and we'll just call them SQEs from now on because it's too much of a mouthful first thing in the morning, what they are, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, I'll give you an example from Star Trek. Imagine you're on the Enterprise or Voyager. Voyager was a very good series. And you are on the holodeck. That's a SQE. So it can be a copy of some environment that is then replicated, or maybe the environment never existed in the first place, and it's a construct. And so you could go into it and actually not know that you have been copied into it, which is the most interesting part. The person doesn't actually go into the SQE. They're normally copied. Their consciousness is copied. But once the SQE is collapsed, the information that the copy has automatically assimilates back with the originating form.
Yeah.
And except
go on.
For when a SQE is created around a person and they put all of the live humans inside the SQE, and we can do this in sittings. And what happens is then people will see levels of phenomenon take place, but they won't see, well, I was going to say they won't see a holodeck environment, but they actually, on some levels, they can, I guess.
So I might disagree with that.
Good, disagree.
Yeah, I mean, we've experienced these SQEs a good few times now, actually, haven't we? And I'll say, unless you are told that you're in one. Now, this is out of a sitting environment. Sitting environment is different. If you are not in a sitting environment, you would not know you were in an SQE unless you were told you were in an SQE. You would have not the foggiest that you're not in your normal environment. We were allowed to experience a time event, which I think we talked about a few weeks back. But basically, the environment that we were in was a copy, and normal human time was allowed to continue on in that environment. But what we realized was that an entire hour had passed, and when we came out of that environment, the time was only like 2 minutes on from where it had been. We had no idea at all that had happened. And that's just one example. I've been on craft, but not realizing it was a craft, thinking I was in my lounge room when I was a child, to find out later that what took place there was impossible and it had to have been on craft. But as a child, I had absolutely no idea that I wasn't in my lounge room. The level of sophistication with this is absolutely incredible. Now, in a sitting environment, when Paul's working with them, or they're working through you, and they create this SQE environment within the space that we're in, when it's going on, if they want you to know it's going on, because the room starts to distort. The entire space starts bending and warping. Do you remember, like in Star Trek, which is why I disagreed with Paul's comment, when the holodeck starts to fail and it starts to glitch and things get all gloopy and fluid looking and bendy? That's exactly how it looks. Like if we have a table always a table in the middle of the room, and that table will like literally start swaying backwards and forwards like you're on a boat.
And get bigger and smaller.
It shrinks, it gets larger, like you expand out, you contract back in again, the space gets bigger and comes back in again. It's bonkers.
It's a bit like the, you know, really, when Jodie Foster goes in the movie Contact, she drops down and she goes through the portal.
It's exactly
and she says something, and next thing she comes out the side of her face. It's something like that. It can be rather confronting, can't it?
We had some friends over from the States. They may be watching in the background here, and they came over to sit with you, and they allowed us to have an SQE environment for one of the sittings. And in that sitting, the Zetas projected themselves through Paul. So Paul like disappeared in energy, and out of Paul's seemingly literally like opening like a portal came this full 3D Technicolor Zeta.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
Yeah, you know, we're all just sat there going, okay, that's not human. That's definitely not human. We put the audio of that little clip up on our channel, so you'll be able to find that if you scroll through it. It was awesome. Anyway.
So the next question is.
Oh, hang on, Kay's there.
Hey, hey everybody. Yeah. So it's all right. We're just chatting today. How many SQEs are believed to be constructed near the Earth? Well, I think when we did the development of the hive mind of the human race, collective consciousness, when I looked it up, because I don't remember everything, there was 153 SQEs. But
yeah, they know.
I would suggest that it's not a solid number. It's like the Galactic Federation. We've been told that there's definitely councils and there's definitely, you know, beings that get together and collaborate over certain things, but it's not a solid council that exists permanently with all the same members all the time.
Yeah, they come and go.
That members come and go, new races join. You know, it's actually quite a political environment as well. So there are a lot of races with their own agendas as well. Doesn't mean they're in service to self, although they're looking after themselves, but they definitely, like I guess the United Nations, everybody's got a role to play in that as well. But no, how I got onto that,
I don't know either. I don't know you've lost me.
Don't worry about that.
I'm just trying to think how it might relate to the SQEs. But anyway, look, Trisha's asked a question. Quickly distract yourself.
Are SQEs used to test
hybrid
what
humans?
A hybrid human will do in a certain situation? Look, that there's a fine line between a synthetic quantum environment and a construct. So a construct can be used to test a person over and over. But I would suggest that if you were in a construct, you wouldn't realize that you were. Well, with the SQEs, you don't know that you are either. So they're comparable. Is a construct is more of a environment and testing process. So it may be that you've got a communication issue with a person, and it seems that you're always having a communication issue with a person, and so you're in a construct. That's not a synthetic quantum environment, because the environments are used and they can be hugely, not infinite, but quite large. And inside those environments, a person could see a craft. So you could step into an SQE, or a copy of you would be placed there, and you'll see a craft, but the craft actually doesn't exist. This comes back to the whole thing about disclosure. How do you know, if you do see a craft, that you're actually seeing the craft, or not just being shown an extension of an image of a craft? This is, I think personally, that humans need to get to the point where there's some teaching around all of this stuff, because if everybody just keeps going, oh, they're aliens, that they'll never disclose. expect humans to be able to tell the difference between what is real, what isn't real. And so we spend a lot of time working out what's really going on. And if we don't know, then we really look into it so that, we end up with some definition. We're able to go, okay, look, this is what's happened. Next question from John. Is a construct rather more of a mental projection by the Zeta mind? No, that's got nothing to do with the Zeta's minds. The constructs are, let's say, John, that you decide to perform a test. You then go and get the technology that is required for you to perform a test, and then you run the construct. And then all you do is reset the simulation over and over and over until the subject, the subject gives you the response that is needed for them to grow in consciousness.
Yeah.
Right.
Simple.
Simple. Okay, there you go. Actually, here, you take that mouse.
Thank you.
Right.
Thanks
and I'll. Did humans actually travel to physical planets like Mars using the jump room technology, or did they arrive in a simulated copy of those planets within an SQE?
You see, that's a great question.
Yes.
To explain the SQE.
Yeah. So do you want to do that?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So when they were doing the jump room technology, Basaggio had stated that they were jumping to Mars. That in one of those situations, one of them, I think it was Basaggio, actually said that his arm was dislodged or taken off or something, removed
by a Martian.
And no, I think it was damaged.
No, I think if I remember rightly, he had an altercation.
He had an altercation. But then again, of course, he's come back out of the SQE and his arm's attached, and there is no damage whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that shows that a copy of somebody's consciousness is taken, placed into the SQE. They are inside a holographic environment where the projection of the Mars landscape is. And then when they're brought back out, they look and they realize that their arm's still attached, but they have the memory of their arm being dislodged or removed. Whatever it was. So that's how SQEs can be used in those areas as well. Next one. Oh, there's a question, is there?
Yep.
Okay, what creates the construct and how is it manifested and replayed over and over? Really what creates the construct is the technology. And the thing is the technology isn't understood by us yet. We do not understand the technology. A lot of people will see orbs. They go, oh, there's a spirit. Or there's this. They don't know what the orb is. We know that orbs are the most non-threatening thing that can be presented to a human. And so spirits, as well as ET and interdimensionals, light beings, celestials, will all use orbs as a representation of either themselves or their technology, so that ultimately when the humans has a benign response to the orb technology, it then means that the technology is able to do its function, perform its task. Whereas if it appeared as a big grizzly bear like this, and the person goes, oh no, I'm being attacked by a big grizzly bear, you'd never get a response that you actually wanted to do. You would want the human, to be in a neutral environment as well.
I remember talking to them a little bit about a construct they placed around me to test my reaction to certain stimuli. And I remember the phrase, they had set the correct parameters.
Yeah.
And I think, this was like 10 years ago. I didn't know enough to be able to ask the right questions about any more of that at that point. I think I was still busy absorbing the fact what had happened, but it's certainly something I could ask them about now. I think maybe I will.
You can, but look, Catherine's got a really good point. She says it seems that a lot of what we're saying is about personal discretion and not accepting all that the eyes can see or the ears from both anyone, the government or ET or anyone, and anyone disclosing info. In the end, if a craft has been taken and back engineered, and the humans have created their own craft. Even Greer, when he was showing imagery, said, well, the tic tac from the humans have got little little cables on them or something.
Aerials and things.
Now, I saw a real tic tac up close. It didn't have that. And so from the perspective, your question, it's like you have to really look at what you are seeing and then have the developmental consciousness to then start to question the information that you're getting. If we don't start questioning the information that's coming to us, then we just are just buying into the theories of other people. We say, oh, hypothetically, this is possible, or our experience is this. And even when we say our experience is this, we also say, but we may not have understood it, but we had to look into it a bit more.
Yeah.
And I don't think that anybody should be able to say, oh, yeah, look, it's just
definitely
this, because it's definitely not that.
Yeah. There can be 100 explanations just for one type of phenomena, for like orbs, for instance. You know, you can't possibly prescribe one answer to what an orb is. There are so many different things what an orb can be. It's you know, we could well, we have talked for many hours about what orbs can be, and that's just orbs.
You'll say to me, oh, did you see that orb? I'll say, yeah. But our response to the orb is neutral, because we don't know whether what's behind the orb is it a spirit person coming through from spirit realm down through the astral and then moving into the fabric of the three-dimensional space, and in doing so it's created a flash of light or an orb. Is it an extraterrestrial technology that's presenting itself, and it's come through fabric as well? And quite often, I'm not sure if anyone's seen this, but we see a lot of this stuff, is you'll see parts of an extraterrestrial around. You might see a finger or a foot or a leg or 2 feet or an arm or something. And so you get to see parts of these things. Now, is this to do with the way that your visual range processes information, or are they outside of our visual range, but just for a brief second, the mind was able to perceive the being? I'll give you an example. So we were in a sitting room the other day, and there was a light that was going around the wall. If you looked directly at it, you couldn't see it, but if you looked up, you could see it. And I thought, oh, that's really interesting, because that means that obviously there's some level of peripheral vision taking place. So once again, you see straight away, I'm going, I need to analyze what's going on. I'm not just accepting that I can't see it, but if I look up, I can see it. But within 5 minutes, I could see it. And I started to ask questions of the spirit people that were in the room, saying, how is it that in the first 5 minutes, I had to look up to see it, and now I can look straight at it? And they said, because we've filled the room up with a level of, well, we'll call it ectoplasm, if you want to call energy ectoplasm, and it's at that level. And it's as if you're dipping your head in and out of water. If you look down or you look up, you'll see something completely different, because it's what we want you to see. Spirit people do exactly the same thing as extraterrestrials as well.
Yeah, well,
it's really interesting.
Yeah, they've got their own reasons for why we.
And they've got all their own spirit teams. They've got all their own spirit team technologies. They've got lots of different things. So
Trish actually asks, does spirit use constructs to test humans? I'd suggest they're not testing humans in the way that the extraterrestrials are, but they certainly want their people that they're associated with to learn and grow. So, growth.
What about, well, that's true. So your guide may set up a situation where you need to learn something specifically.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you're being tested, but you're not being tested in a way that a race may test a planet as well.
There'll be different reasons.
What about rather than just being personal? What if the test is a global test?
I wouldn't be surprised if it
was. What
if
the test is on a species basis, that the whole species is being tested about their reaction towards disclosure? And maybe this is why all these testing parameters are placed and all this information is placed. And then there's a global response. And most people are like, we don't care about ET. We just don't care about it. And then there's a small compartmentalized group of people that go, no, we do care. And then the extraterrestrials are going, well, we're monitoring the response, because if the overall perspective of humans is we just don't care, then maybe they're going, we don't need to disclose.
There's a comment there from John that I can't read.
Zetas seem to have a much broader concept of what we call technology. Technology from beings and other races. If Stephen Greer was saying that humans have technology 1,000 years advanced than what we've currently got, imagine the races themselves. It's their technology. What technology is? You see, the technology was gained from craft that crashed. That's what's being said. Okay, that's not me saying that. That's what's being said
by lots of
witnesses. By lots of other people. And so we can imagine that it's like you and your car. Do you pack your house into your car when you go shopping? No. You take a couple of shopping bags, but you leave everything else inside the house. So if a craft goes somewhere, are they packing the whole planet into the craft just because they're going somewhere? No. They're just packing the technology and the test tubes or whatever it is that they need to go on that journey to get the information that they require. And so when somebody says, oh, well, we're back engineering this technology and building technology, they're only building like 1% of the technology that it's available on a much larger scale for a race. And that means that these beings, if they, really, who can say what they will do or won't do? They seem fairly benign at this point, and they're not. If they wanted to have the planet, they would have the planet, really, but who really wants it anyway? I mean, humans use it like a bit of a rubbish chip. Oh, that's just my opinion. Whatever. All right, so how do the Zetas use SQEs for experimentation and exploration without causing harm to anybody? Well, what they do is they take copies of everything. They take a copy of a human so that you don't know that, well, you're physically not harmed anyway. They can take copies of spirit people as well.
They can.
And they can put them into a construct. Right? Is the human experience in the SQE identical to their experience in the physical environment?
It can be.
It can be, but no, you can't tell the difference either. Yeah. That's another big issue. Yeah. Like Syann accurately described before with us and the missing time incident, we had no idea that we were in a missing time scenario until they disclosed it to us, and the clocks actually had only moved forward a couple of minutes and not an hour or anything.
It was crazy.
Interestingly, though, I would suggest, though, that we did exist in that whole hour that we were missing in the three-dimensional space.
Yeah.
Yep. So we actually lived and moved in that whole hour, only to then rejoin. So we've been on the timeline, we've gone out,
we've looped.
And then we've looped and we've come back at the point that we left, but a couple of minutes later.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not confusing at all, is it really? All right.
What number are we up to?
36. Are humans capable of reaching other SQEs besides the one they initially access through the jump room technology? No, you can't jump from one SQE to another. They're completely different frequency.
Okay.
All right. Is the concept of an SQE connected to the idea of a holographic reality? Yes, in some way it is.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do humans require Zeta assistance every time they use the jump room technology to access an SQE? Probably not. It depends on what level of technology they have. Now, if you watch the Montauk Project videos and the Philadelphia experiments, Bielik and the other guys, I can't remember their names.
No, I was going to say the wrong
talk about, they talk about the experiments that were designed and how they were performed. And so they didn't have any extraterrestrials around them when they...
Did they say where they got the jump room technology from? Did they actually say back engineer craft? I can't remember.
You'd have to watch the whole
Yeah.
four-hour video about
Preston Nichols.
Preston Nichols and
Duncan Campbell.
Duncan.
Who was Cameron?
Cameron somebody, yeah.
Anyway, you can look that up. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
Like, seriously interesting.
All right. So, boy, there's a lot of questions, isn't there?
It's a long old list.
How do Zetas describe consciousness? Oh no. As an never-ending, expansive space, and the only way that we can actually understand it from our perception is if you ask them a question, they will choose the best answer for your ability to understand what's being said to you. They may see 350 answers and have a look at what your capacity is to understand what your consciousness is and what compared to theirs, and they'll and this is not a good way to use heterodyning, but they'll heterodyne the answer down so that there's a meeting point in regards to that. So it's, when we talk about consciousness, can anybody actually describe human consciousness? Is there anybody out there that can describe human consciousness? So if you can, put it into your comments. But remember, many people have tried, and I think all have failed at this point. Okay. Someone says it was Cameron.
It was
right.
Cameron.
That's right.
Thank you, Trish. I thought I was going, I'm so sure it was Cameron. Thank you.
Boy, how do the Zetas explain the illusory nature of our physical existence? Well, I would suggest that we need to go back to the Honorians for that information.
Oh boy.
And that when the Honorians are talking about this physical existence, they're talking about it in a holographic perspective. They're talking about that the whole thing is populated with fine matter. Now, if we have a look at, there's some really good videos around that describe what happens if you've got an orange and then you pull it apart and then you drill down and you see it. So you have a look at what the atomic structure it is. You pull that apart, you see the electrons, and then you pull that apart and you see the protons and neurons. You pull that apart and then you look down further and you see quarks, and then you pull that apart, and next thing you know, you see that there is a vibrating string. Yeah. And so
that's string theory.
That's right? String theory. And they've even suggested that you can go down much further, but of course, the vibration of that specific string creates that molecular structure. It's not the other way around, that the molecular structure creates the string. So when we think about the way the Honorians speak, the Honorians say that consciousness, which is the underlying principle of everything, creates the string, creates the quark, creates the protons, neutrons, creates the spinning electrons, creates the matter. And so the Zetas, from the Zeta's perspective as well, they say that all things are based in consciousness.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Hopefully
science lessons.
Hopefully that was in some way went towards totally not confusing you. All right, that's fine.
There's a question there from John. Oh no, I think it's a comment.
There are not enough words in any language to accurately describe consciousness. The problem is with it doesn't matter how many words you have, they're inadequate.
Yeah.
Because consciousness is so many things to so many people. To one person, they might say, oh, well, consciousness is being sovereign and being sentient and understanding the difference. Whereas if you ask a spirit what consciousness is, they'll have a different perspective. If you ask an Honorian, they'll have a different perspective. You ask, say, the Arcturians, they'll have a different perspective as well. And then if someone says that they're speaking to God, which is the pure source of all things, the question would be, how is that even possible? Because if God has created the three-dimensional space of matter and the consciousness that exists in that space, how is it then able to view itself you see, and if in viewing itself, your individuated form would no longer exist.
I mean, if you've ever experienced existing outside the confines of your physical body, so maybe you're a deep trance medium, and you've experienced existing without your body. I mean, it's as simple as, and as complicated, but as simple as that. I mean, I've experienced that 3 or 4 times to that degree, and I don't have the words to even describe how powerful that experience was, let alone anything else. There are no words to describe it. It's phenomenal.
All right. Well, how about you describe what heterodyning is?
In what context?
Well, heterodyning in regards to
Connection.
Yeah, connection. So we came up with, well, heterodyning is a word that's used in electromagnetic technology, I believe, could be wrong, and it's related to acoustics. And the Zetas were talking to William Shanid about it, and William came up with, said, "Oh, there's a process called heterodyning," and the Zeta said, "Oh, that'll do," as a way to create a framework for understanding. Now we're hearing lots of people talking about heterodyning, and it's funny because when they're talking about it from not an experiential level, but just from what they've read something about it, and they've gone, "Oh, well, this is what you must do." But heterodyning is actually really complicated, isn't it? And there's a lot more to it.
Well, in regards to connecting with extraterrestrial beings, we teach people the process that the Zetas have taught Paul, and then Paul taught me, and they use the process which we term heterodyning. Now, unless you've actually done this yourself, you're realizing that heterodyning is not the process of connection.
It's one step in the connection.
It's the state that you need to be in. You need to be in a heterodyne state in order to get connection.
Could you compare heterodyning to CE5? Considering that Stephen Greer was talking about CE5.
So heterodyning's got absolutely nothing to do with CE5. CE5, as far as I understand it, is, depending on which particular process you may or may not follow, may involve an entire week, or just an hour of meditation, and then
moving into universal spaces,
doing that, and then pretending you're on Google Maps inside your mind, and
the
vectoring in process. So when we talk about heterodyning, we talk about elevating our frequency to a point to meet the extraterrestrials. However, once you get to this elevated frequency, and actually even before you even try to lift yourself up, you have to do various other energetic processes in order to create the right energetic environment for the extraterrestrials to come and meet you at that heterodyne state. The heterodyne state is when the person has gone up. The extraterrestrials obviously have to come down, because there's no way we as humans can get up there. They have to come down. They meet us in the middle, in this space that we create through consciousness processes, and that meeting point is the heterodyne state.
And that's a level of control that's created by you. So rather than a CE5 process where you're just in meditation and, presenting love, which is a really lovely way, or hopefully a lovely way to create a decent space. The problem is that you're not sure who you're presenting yourself to, whereas with heterodyning, the person that's creating the heterodyne space is the one who's in control of the contact scenario. And there's a lot of things to learn in heterodyning, but I think it's a much safer and valid technique. I know that people have some good experiences with CE5, but I think as we go along as a species, we need to learn to develop new contact protocols and ways to contact races as well, and that's why heterodyning is the best one.
Well, if the information that Greer is facilitating in coming forward into the public arena is as it is suggested, that a lot of the UFOs that people are reporting, and craft contacts that people are reporting, are actually human based, it really does bring into question the whole CE5 process.
So let's just look at that for a minute. You just said, and I just realized what you said, So if all contact with humans is via humans pretending to be extraterrestrials,
Yeah.
then is there any point
that's
in
what he's
doing
basically just
C5?
said.
Because
Yeah.
that means you're just heterodyning to a false state.
Well, you're not heterodyning.
Sorry,
you're
using C5 to get to a false state.
Yeah.
The fact is that you have to then, as we said before, have to acknowledge that extraterrestrials have contacted humans.
Yeah.
I'm sure that all the people that have been contacted by extraterrestrials are going, there's a lot more to this. This is not just about humans contacting humans. But yeah, I think there's a lot more that when they say disclosure, I think disclosure is a can of worms.
A really big can of worms.
Can you remote view to initiate contact? No.
Don't try.
No.
Either. We really don't recommend
remote viewing will not. And the problem is there may be some contact, but it'll all be one-sided. Yep. And so we can't go into this too much, but it's quite common for people on social media to try things because they consider themselves, I guess, pseudo experts without any training. And what happens is they end up with problems associated with it. So if you get training from someone to become an Olympic runner, your coach will spend months, if not years, teaching you how to run correctly, breathe correctly, do all the things that's required to do that. If you think about that in regards to extraterrestrial contact, people need training. That's all it comes down to. People need training, because without it, you get onto the track, but you're not going to be winning any gold medals. You'll be the last person to arrive out of breath. Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. Right. The best part, John says there's so many experts out there. The best part about actually making mistakes is learning from those mistakes. That's the thing. And the more mistakes that you make in contact, and you are able to resolve those mistakes, if you want to call them that, the more you learn about contact as well. And Syann and I are the first to admit that it takes a lot of work for contact to take place.
Yeah.
And
it took 15 years.
15 years. And the thing is, it's not a drive-through situation. We won't mention any copyrighted names, but it's not a drive-through situation where you just order of something and then I'll have chips with that and off you go. It's a process where you need to develop your own energy. You need to learn about them. They need to learn about you. Then they will be observing you. They'll put you in a construct testing environment. They may put you into a synthetic quantum environment. They'll test you to see what your response is, because they don't want to associate with humans at the level that humans are at. They want to associate with humans on their level, not the level that humans are at. And it means that you need to present yourself in a way where you are presentable, whether you like it or not. And people think, we can just all rock up, in our shorts and thongs and singlets, and that they're going to be right. She'll be right, mate. No problems. It's not going to happen. That's a joke that way, but you know what I mean. All right. We've been going nearly an hour. I think we need to pull the pin on this thing.
I need a cup of tea.
A cup of tea. All right. Well, maybe we will go. How about that?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, if we can wrap the SQE.
You want to wrap the SQE?
So we don't, because we need to move on to the next chapter next week. Do we have any other?
Do the Zetas create vortexes and portals?
Do you want to talk about your night? This is the face of all-night contact.
Yes.
If anyone's thinking, these two look a bit tired this morning, there's a reason for that. Yeah.
So portals. I don't even know where to start, honestly. Portals is such a massive, massive subject. You could talk about portals for hours. And if you had the right people asking the right questions about portals, that would then go into weeks of discussions about portals.
I'll ask you a question about portals.
Okay.
Give me an example of why the Zetas may use a temporary portal.
Did you have to ask that question? Yeah. The Zetas will use a temporary portal to interact with a node or a hybrid and they'll interact with the physical body of the astral or the etheric body of the hybrid, while also interacting with the extraterrestrial component of the hybrid as well.
And how do we know that, Paul?
I read about it. No, that's not true.
Because that's what happened last night.
That's right.
Yeah, so when we say we talk from our own experiences, we actually do.
All right.
All right. Are there any last questions before
it was great to see you all, and if you know anyone that should be listening to this sort of information, then ask them
if it's useful
for them, get them to subscribe.
I'm thinking of lastminute.com things to say. Next week we're back on our normal time, so that's something. So we'll be back 24 hours earlier than we were today, which is Thursday for people in Australia, and Wednesday evening for people in America and Canada. We may have a guest with us next week as well, just briefly. So we'll be looking into that.
And we could bring on a person. All right, no problem.
I'll just always say this as a prompt. If you've subscribed to our mail out, which we send at the weekends, and you haven't yet received it, please check your spam box or your junk file. It's probably hiding. If you haven't subscribed to get the newsletter each week and you'd like to receive it, all you have to do is go to our website, which is thezetaconnection.com. And
if you don't want to hear from us, you need to unsubscribe. How about that?
A little box will pop up and you just put your email address in and you get that over the weekend. But don't unsubscribe. We'll miss you.
I heard a person on another podcast say the best thing, and I mean, I can't repeat it, but it was so funny about people that subscribe and unsubscribe. You really thought it was funny as well. But
did
anyway.
I don't remember. Pam says, what chapter are we doing next week? Hi, Pam. I don't know. I haven't looked.
You'll have to turn up and
whatever's
find out.
After chapter 20. John, you have been getting it. Awesome.
Right,
I'm glad you have. I'm glad, and I hope you find it interesting and useful.
And of course, just for people that are here, if you'd want me to write a specific blog about for that mail out or a subject, I'm quite happy to do that. And so you would just email us at thezetaconnection@hotmail.com.
Yeah, I'm very happy.
And I'll then write about that specific subject.
Yeah, we do say if there's anything you want us to cover, if we can, we'll try.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
See you next week.
Bye-bye.